There is a waterfall in Antarctica that bleeds. Not metaphorically, not as a trick of light. Bright red liquid flowing constantly from a crack in a glacier into a frozen lake below. Scientists discovered it in 1911. For 100 years, they had no explanation. There is a desert in California where rocks weighing hundreds of pounds move on their own across flat ground, leaving tracks behind them. Nobody has ever seen them move, not once, not in 100 years of observation. And there is a place in Venezuela where lightning strikes up to 280 times per hour every single night. Not during storms, on clear nights, on cloudy nights, in every season, for thousands of years without stopping. Sailors used it as a lighthouse for centuries. Scientists still cannot fully explain why it happens. 3 places, 3 phenomena that science struggled to explain for over a century. By the end of this video, you will know the truth behind all 3, and I promise you, the answers are stranger than the mysteries. Antarctica, 1911. A geologist named Thomas Griffith Taylor was leading an expedition through one of the most remote and lifeless places on the planet, the Taylor Glacier in the McMurdo dry valleys of Antarctica, a place so cold, so dry, so hostile to life that it is often used by scientists as a model for what Mars might look like. And then he saw it, pouring from a crack in the glacier, staining the white ice below it, flowing into a small frozen lake, a waterfall, bright, vivid red, the color of fresh blood. He had no explanation. Nobody did. For decades, the leading theory was algae growing inside the glacier, coloring the water as it flowed out. It seemed reasonable, it seemed scientific, it was accepted. It was wrong. Scientists kept studying blood falls, as it came to be known, and the algae theory kept falling apart. The water was too salty, too cold, too isolated. The conditions inside that glacier were unlike anything on the surface of the Earth. In 2003, a team of researchers drilled into the ice and extracted water samples from deep inside the glacier. What they found changed everything. The water inside that glacier had been completely sealed off from the outside world for approximately 1.5 million years. 1.5 million years. When the Taylor Glacier formed, it trapped a small pocket of ancient seawater beneath it. Over hundreds of thousands of years, that water became saturated with iron, highly concentrated iron. When that iron-rich water finally finds a crack in the glacier and flows out and meets oxygen for the first time in over 1 million years, it oxidizes instantly. It rusts. The red color is rust, iron oxide, the exact same process that makes old metal turn red. The water isn't bleeding, it's rusting in real time as it flows. But here's the part that genuinely astonishes scientists. Inside that water, in a liquid that has been sealed from sunlight, from oxygen, from the surface of the Earth for 1.5 million years, researchers found life, microbial life, a complete ecosystem of microorganisms surviving in total darkness in near-freezing, highly salty, oxygen-free water, feeding on sulfur compounds to generate energy. They have been living there in complete isolation since before modern humans existed. 1.5 million years of life in darkness. The waterfall isn't bleeding, it's breathing. And what scientists found inside it has completely changed how we think about the possibility of life on other planets. If something can survive inside a sealed glacier in Antarctica for 1.5 million years, what might be surviving inside the frozen moons of Jupiter or beneath the ice caps of Mars? Death Falls was never about blood. It was a window into ancient, impossible life that had been waiting in darkness for the world to find it. Death Valley, California, Racetrack Playa. Racetrack Playa is one of the flattest places on Earth, a dry lake bed in the heart of Death Valley, itself the hottest, driest place in North America. The surface is cracked mud baked hard by the sun, perfectly level in every direction. And across that perfectly flat surface, there are rocks. Hundreds of them. Some small, some the size of a television set, some weighing over 300 kilograms. Every single one of them has moved. You can see the evidence, long grooves cut into the hardened mud, stretching for tens of meters, sometimes hundreds of meters, in elegant curving paths. The rocks sit at the end of those tracks, like they simply stopped walking and waited to be found. Nobody has ever seen them move. Researchers installed time-lapse cameras. Scientists camped nearby for months at a time. Geologists, physicists, and engineers proposed theory after theory. For nearly a century, the sailing stones of Death Valley were one of the most studied and least understood phenomena on Earth. The theories were creative. Some scientists proposed that powerful wind gusts, rare but extreme, were pushing the rocks across the surface during unusual weather conditions. The math almost worked, but the rocks moved in different directions, sometimes at the same time, which meant the wind theory required simultaneous gusts from multiple directions. Impossible. Others proposed that the dry lake bed occasionally flooded with shallow water, and that in the extreme desert cold, a thin, fragile sheet of ice formed across the entire surface. And then, as the sun rose and began to warm the air, the ice sheet started to break apart. Not melt, break apart into large, thin panels of ice that began to drift slowly across the shallow water, pushed by light morning breezes. And as those ice panels drifted, they pushed the rocks in front of them. Not quickly, not dramatically. The rocks moved at a speed of between 2 and 5 meters per minute, slow enough to be invisible to a casual observer, slow enough that you could sit and watch and never realize anything was happening. But the GPS confirmed it. The rocks were moving. The sailing stones of Death Valley don't move on their own. They ride ice in a desert, in one of the hottest places on Earth. For 100 years, scientists looked for wind, they looked for floods, they looked for geological forces and magnetic anomalies, and a dozen other explanations. The answer was a thin sheet of ice on a temporary pond, moved by a gentle breeze. Lake Maracaibo, Venezuela. Find Lake Maracaibo on a map. It sits in northwestern Venezuela, a large coastal lake connected to the Gulf of Venezuela by a narrow strait. It is one of the oldest lakes on Earth. Some geologists believe it is between 20 and 36 million years old. Now find it at night on satellite imagery. It is lit up. Not by cities, not by oil platforms, though there are many. By lightning. Constant, ceaseless, perpetual lightning, concentrated over the southwestern corner of the lake, where the Catatumbo River flows in from the surrounding mountains. The Catatumbo lightning, named after the river, has been observed since the first indigenous peoples settled the region thousands of years ago. Spanish sailors in the 16th century used it as a navigational landmark. They called it the Lighthouse of Maracaibo. On a clear night, the lightning was visible from over 400 kilometers away. Ships used it to orient themselves the same way they would use any lighthouse, a fixed, reliable, permanent light source. Except, this lighthouse was lightning, and it never turned off. The statistics are almost incomprehensible. On an average night, the Catatumbo lightning produces between 16 and 40,000 lightning bolts. In peak season, it strikes up to 280 times per hour. And for centuries, nobody could explain it. The early theories were mythological. The indigenous Bari people believed the lightning was caused by fireflies. Spanish colonizers thought it was the result of methane gas from the oil deposits beneath the lake. The region sits on one of the largest petroleum reserves on Earth, and that this methane was somehow igniting in the atmosphere. The methane theory persisted for a long time. It felt scientific. It was wrong. The geography is the key. Lake Maracaibo sits in a basin surrounded on three sides by mountain ranges: the Andes to the west and south, the Perijá Mountains to the west, the coastal ranges to the north. During the day, the sun heats the flat lake surface in the surrounding land, creating warm, moist air that rises steadily throughout the day. As evening comes, cool air begins to flow down from the mountains. These two air masses, the warm, wet air rising from the lake and the cool air descending from the mountains, collide directly above the southwestern corner of the lake, precisely where the Catatumbo River Valley creates a natural channel for the mountain air. The collision of warm and cold, wet and dry, creates convective storms of extraordinary intensity, night after night in the same place, with a reliability that approaches something mechanical. A natural lighthouse, powered by an accident of geography, running without interruption for thousands of years. There is a mountain range in Norway where ships have been sinking for centuries in calm water with no apparent cause. There are lakes in Cameroon that have killed thousands of people in a single night, silently, invisibly, without warning. There are forests in Siberia still radioactive from an event that happened in 1908 that we still cannot fully explain. The Earth keeps its secrets carefully. Subscribe if you want to keep looking for them.